But today we're going to talk about a little bit non-NHL news. Um, the newest league that has come to hockey, the PWHL, has been going on a huge, almost like a tour where they're going around to a bunch of different NHL arenas and different arenas in the world. And today we had a huge matchup with the Boston Fleet playing the New York Sirens. Boston ends up taking it in a shootout in a crazy game. I believe 5 rounds. I think it was a 4-3 victory, if I'm correct.
Oh God, I was just there and I forgot.
But yeah, Will actually went with his father. Went to that game. So, Will, we want to hear about the experience. I mean, none of us could go to the game. We were all busy today, but for someone that has been a hockey fan your whole life, seeing the PWHL come into existence, what were your thoughts on the whole experience?
Well, the first thing that this wasn't necessarily about the game today, but one of the things that I think is really interesting and neat is just the different rules they have applied. So, if you're not familiar, the NHL has the three number system or whatever, like 2 points for a win, 1 point for OT loss, and 0 points for a loss. The PWHL has the 3-2-1-0, which is 3 points for overtime, 3 points for a win, 2 points for an overtime or shootout win, 1 point for a shootout or OT loss, and then 0 points for regulation loss.
Similar to the Four Nations tournament.
Which has been a very big thing about people wanting that to come back into or be introduced into the NHL, because that's how a ton of leagues are. And then you'll find some teams like the New York Islanders who tend to sneak in with about 20 overtime losses, 20 points worth of overtime losses to sneak in and beat other teams that have 5 more wins. So I think that's a really cool thing that's introduced. And then one thing that I didn't know about until today in our shootout was the NHL is 3 rounds of shootouts. So yeah, just at least there are going to be 3 rounds. In the PWHL, from what I understood after watching the game today, was there were 5 rounds. So after one of the teams, Boston scored in the 3rd round, I believe it was, and then New York had the chance to score again. They didn't score, so my dad and I thought that, oh, it's over, Boston just won, but they just kept coming. So instead of 3 rounds in the shootout, it's 5 rounds in the shootout, which I thought was a very interesting rule. Now, personally, I don't like shootouts. I'd rather just keep seeing 3-on-3 overtime, but I thought that was very interesting. But back to the game, I thought it was very interesting because, I'm used to seeing guys out there that are, 6 foot or above usually. Granted, the NHL is kind of going down to more skill-based short guys like Connor Bedard. But, you got people all shapes and sizes. And it was very interesting for me to see today because the tallest girl out there, I believe, was 5'10", which is just something, I don't expect seeing because I'm always watching men's hockey. And so because of size and speed difference, it was very interesting to see the difference of speed of the game. And it really brought in, the first period was very slow, which usually I feel like NHL games, it's usually faster and then maybe slows down, at least from my lovely Sabres hockey. But it was really interesting because it was really slow at the beginning. And then second and third period, it started getting really chippy and scrappy, which is really, really fun to see. The girls were getting into it. They're pushing each other. There were a bunch of penalties, a bunch of big hits, which was really fun because body checking is not technically allowed in the PWHL. So I thought it was very, very neat to see how into the game they were. And there are 30 games in the season right now, and there were only 6 teams. So these teams will see each other very often. which also brings in that, more competition, physicality. And so it's a very different speed, but it's really, really neat to see.
Now, touch about like the fans there. I mean, I think the crowd total was 8,512 or
Mhm.
somewhere around that. How was the experience from you sitting there and being one of those fans? I know they didn't have the 300s open.
Yeah.
How was that experience being the lower bowl? How were the fans engaging with it? What was your experience sitting there as a hockey fan with a bunch of other hockey fans seeing the PWHL?
That was the loudest I've heard that arena in years.
Since the Jack Eichel coming back?
Well, okay, at the loudest game I've been to, RJ night, Rob Ray night, Ryan Miller night, Eichel coming back. Those were all very loud games. But I try to go to at least 3 Sabres games a year. So for me personally, I thought it was very, very awesome to see how loud these people were getting. It was mostly girls, but there were so many. I love seeing so many dads with their daughters and so many moms with their daughters. There were a bunch of teams. Amherst girls showed up. They were all in the stands. They were on the jumbotron a bunch of times. They had junior girls Sabres show up at the beginning for the national anthem. It was awesome. And the DJ, oh, I forgot her name, but she had a bunch of newer songs like Chaperone, playing some Taylor Swift, got all the girls going, and every time you saw the jumbotron, these girls were into it so much. And then you also get it's great because it's for everyone, not just the girls. You find, me and my dad, we went see there was a boys hockey team there. It's so much fun, and it's great to see that because some of these girls have been working so hard to play. Like on the national team last night, Hillary Knight was on a intermission for the Buffalo Sabres, and they're talking about it. And Hillary said something along the lines of, now it's not just making the national team. Obviously, making the national team is everyone's dream, but instead of just college, you know, now you have a bigger opportunity with 6 times as much room, and it gives more like, wow, I can actually do this. And it's great to see that, especially in this Buffalo area where it's a huge hockey town, these young girls being able to see that they can get through it, they can do it, and they can be some of the best in the world. It's awesome to see.
I mean, we even talk about being a hockey town. I mean, this is the first time the PWHL has gone to Buffalo. Did you feel that energy in that crowd? Did they show that excitement? I mean, you said everyone was there enjoying it, but like, do you believe that this right here is great and that maybe even a Buffalo team comes to the PWHL?
Yeah, I was really hoping that we would have been when they introduced the PWHL. I was really hoping that Buffalo would be one of the teams. Um, we had the Buffalo Buttes, and they were like the best team in their league for a long time, and they did great things. So I was kind of hoping we'd have it. But it's such a big hockey community, such a good community. Like if you even just go around Buffalo, people will be together. It's one Buffalo. There's reason we have these phrases, Bills Mafia. Even wish we had more Sabres fans show up, but after 13 years of playoff drought, we still have a bunch of fans going and every game, watching every game. It's great to see. I think Buffalo's an excellent area, and I think a lot of the girls that play know that Buffalo is a good area for hockey. And I'm, you know, I want to see the PWHL succeed. If Buffalo doesn't get it, a team, yeah, that stinks. But as long as they succeed, we want to see them succeed. That's all that matters at the end. But I could totally see us getting a team. I think we will. Sure when. But yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions about Will for Will?
Yeah, I just wonder, like, You gotta rate it.
Yeah. So at the beginning, so it's a very interesting play style because it was slower. You know, the girls are smaller than, and I'm comparing this to the NHL. So obviously, it's one of the greatest leagues in the greatest hockey league skill wise in the world. So it's obviously a lot to compare to, but um, they were a lot slower. Their shots were weaker, but um, they brought their game. It was slow at the beginning, and they were physical. They were playing their hearts out, which is all that matters. And there were some very interesting different plays that we'd see. I can't think of any right now, but when I was chatting with my dad during the game, we're like, this is different than when we see NHL. So like just basic things like dumping the puck in or line changes. I loved how fast the girls got off to change the line. One thing that drives me insane the most in the NHL is you'll see these star players lollygagging back to the bench for a line change. These were short line changes, skating as hard as they could just to get off the ice. And that is what I love to see. They're all team players, and that is what I think is super special. Now, there was one girl that stuck out to my dad and I, named Megan Keller. She is on the Boston Fleet. Her edge work was incredible. Her skating, she was skating better backwards than I think a lot of players can even skate forwards. And she had the puck all the time, physical, and it she stuck out. And I'm so excited to see how people will just improve as the game progresses.
Oh, that's like great to see. It's great to see for hockey, and I don't have too much to add. It seems cool. But don't they wear cages though?
They do.
They do. They wear cages.
Yeah.
That's safer.
Now, the last thing I'll add that I thought was very interesting is I think a reason that the game was slower. This I could be totally wrong, but this is just my inferences on the game. So I'm also comparing to the NHL. So in the NHL, these guys have their heads up all the time because if they don't have their heads up, they're probably going to get hit into the boards. So one thing I noticed is since checking isn't a huge thing in women's hockey, which I think is beginning to grow after this league, it's very interesting to see the speed of the game. I think because if hitting is implemented into the game more, girls are going to have their heads up more, which is safer and will open the availability on the ice. So when they're on the power play, they're just kind of passing a little bit, but they had their heads down a bit too much. I mean, granted, they're so much better than me, but they wouldn't see someone that's right in a super clean area because their heads were down a little bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'll be super interesting to see how the game changes in the next 10 years because they're great now, but I'm excited to see how it's going to change. Like every league, players just get better and better and better.
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning of the league, you're going to find people that are older right now, all the girls that are like late 20s to 30s that have been on the world's teams,
Mm-hmm.
they stick out in these games. Now, since the league, I'm hoping is going to become stable because there's a huge fan base, good income. I'm going to be very interested to see how these girls evolve and become stronger hockey players.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's great for the sport of hockey. I think we all agree on that. I think the fan base has definitely grown. I mean, you can even see it from the broadcast itself on TSN. It was definitely shown in that, and it really highlights how the whole world of hockey is really coming together. I mean, you even have club hockey too, having ACHA and AAU. Like you have these different leagues coming together for men's and women's. Like it's very cool to see, and it's great to give people the opportunity to go pro in these sports. Does anyone else have any other opinions or any questions for Will on the PWHL or any other topics they want to talk about for the NHL or anything in the hockey world?
No, just love to see everyone getting better at hockey, I guess.
Yeah.
Mostly PWHL. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see how this goes. It was a really fun time. And if you guys are in an area, if you're listening, if anyone's listening, go to a game, pick a team. It's so much fun to look at. These girls are great at hockey, and they're so into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'll be a wrap on today's episode. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Subscribe if you're new. We'll be here every Monday. But for Sean, Caden, and Will, this is your host, Stephen LePage, checking out. Thank you again, and we hope to see you next week on Light the Lamp podcast.